The room is 12 feet by 10 feet. 7 people live here. The air doesn't move. It just sits there, thick and wet, like something you could slice with a knife. The smell hits you first. Unwashed bodies, yes, but that's just the top note. Underneath, there's the reek of the communal toilet down the hall, which hasn't been cleaned since McKinley was in short pants. There's the sour milk stench of the baby's cloth diapers soaking in a tin bucket by the window. There's the rancid grease from yesterday's potatoes still congealed in the pan because there's no running water to wash it. You breathe through your mouth. It doesn't help. The walls are thin enough that you can hear Mrs. Kowalski coughing up blood next door. The tubercular hack is rhythmic now, almost musical. She's been doing it for 3 weeks. In another week, she'll stop. Not because she got better. The window faces a brick wall 18 inches away. That's it. That's the view. 18 inches of soot-black brick, stained with decades of coal smoke and God knows what else. Sometimes if you press your face against the glass and look up, you can see a rectangle of sky. It's usually gray. This is 335 Cherry Street, the Lower East Side, Manhattan. This is where America happens. The father, let's call him Giuseppe because that's his name, wakes up at 4:30 a.m. Not because he wants to, because the rats start moving around that time, and one of them just ran across his chest. He doesn't scream. You get used to it. He sits up on the pile of rags that passes for a mattress and rubs his face. His hands smell like the fish cannery where he works 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. The smell has soaked into his skin. It doesn't wash off anymore. He shares this mattress with his wife and their youngest, a 2-year-old who coughs like Mrs. Kowalski, but quieter. The other 4 kids sleep on the floor. 2 of them are pressed against the coal stove, which went cold 3 hours ago because coal costs money. Giuseppe stands. His knees crack. He's 34 years old, but his body is 50. The cannery does that. The 12-hour shifts hunched over a gutting table. The wet cold seeping into your spine. The fish oil that gets into every cut and won't heal right. It ages you fast. He pisses into the bucket. The sound wakes nobody. They're all awake already. Nobody sleeps well here. The bed bugs see to that. Let's pause here. Let's do the math. 7 people, 120 square feet. That's 17.1 square feet per person. For context, a modern parking space is 180 square feet. A prison cell in Rikers Island in 2026 is 70 square feet, minimum. Giuseppe's family has less space per person than a convicted felon, and they're not alone. This building, this 5-story brick nightmare crammed between 2 identical nightmares, holds 340 people. The entire structure is 25 feet wide. Do the density math. It doesn't make sense, but it's real. There are 40,000 buildings like this in Manhattan. 1.5 million people live in them. This is not an anomaly. This is the system. The wife, Maria, gets up next. She doesn't speak. What's there to say? She moves to the stove and lights it with a match that costs half a cent. She can't afford to waste it, so she holds the flame until it burns her fingertips. She doesn't flinch. Her hands are already so scarred from the garment factory that new burns don't register. She boils water in a pot that's older than she is. The water comes from the communal tap in the hallway, which services 60 people. The tap runs for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night. If you miss it, you don't drink. The water is brown. It tastes like rust and something organic that nobody wants to identify. She boils it anyway. Last month, the baby down the hall died from cholera. Boiling doesn't always help, but it's all she's got. She makes coffee. Not real coffee, that costs 12 cents a pound, which is 2 hours of Giuseppe's wages. She makes it from burnt bread crusts and chicory. It tastes like dirt, but it's hot, and hot is something. The kids start moving. The oldest is 10. His name is Antonio and he should be in school, but school costs time and time costs money. Instead, he works as a newsboy. He leaves at 5 a.m. and comes back at 8 p.m., and if he's lucky, he clears 30 cents a day. If he's unlucky, one of the older boys breaks his nose and takes his corner. He hasn't been lucky in a while. Here's what you need to understand about the tenement room. It's not just small, it's strategically cruel. The builders knew exactly what they were doing. These structures were designed, engineered even, to extract maximum rent from minimum space. The room Giuseppe's family lives in costs $12 a month. That's 2/3 of his income. The landlord knows this. The landlord knows Giuseppe can't leave because there's nowhere else to go. Every room in every tenement on every block is exactly this full, exactly this expensive, exactly this suffocating. The landlord lives uptown. He's never been inside this building. Why would he? The money comes in whether he looks or not. The toilet is in the hallway. It's shared by 20 people. It's a wooden box with a hole in it that drops into a cesspit in the basement. The cesspit is supposed to be emptied once a month. It isn't. The smell seeps up through the floorboards. In summer, the maggots crawl out. There is no bath. There is no shower. If you want to wash, you heat water on the stove and pour it into a tin basin. You do this once a week if you're lucky. Twice a month if you're not. Giuseppe hasn't fully submerged his body in water since he left Naples 4 years ago. The walls are plaster over wooden slats. You can punch through them if you're angry enough. People do. The holes don't get fixed. You stuff them with newspaper to keep the cold out. It doesn't work. The baby starts crying. It's not the sharp, startled cry of a healthy infant. It's a thin, reedy whine, like air leaking out of a balloon. The baby is sick. The baby is always sick. Maria picks it up and presses it to her chest. The baby's skin is hot. Fever. Again. She rocks it. She hums something her mother used to hum in Calabria, back when the world was bigger and air was free. The baby doesn't stop crying. Giuseppe drinks his fake coffee and doesn't look at them. If he looks, he'll have to think about what happens next. And what happens next is that the baby probably dies. Not definitely. Probably. Maybe 60-40 odds. And if it dies, they'll wrap it in a flour sack and carry it down to the street, where the city cart will pick it up in the morning. They won't pay for a funeral. They can't. Funerals cost money. He finishes his coffee. He puts on his coat. The same coat he's worn for 3 years. The one with the hole in the elbow that Maria keeps meaning to patch but never does because thread costs money. He leaves. The door doesn't lock. There's nothing to steal. Let's talk about the light. Or the lack of it. The window faces a wall. We established that. But it's worse than it sounds. Because the wall isn't just close, it's deliberate. The tenements are built in a grid, packed so tight that there's no space between them. No alleys, no gaps. Just wall-to-wall-to-wall brick, stretching for entire city blocks. The result is that sunlight doesn't reach the lower floors. Ever. If you live on the first or second floor, you live in permanent twilight. The only light comes from candles or kerosene lamps, and both cost money. So most families just sit in the dark. The kids grow up pale. Rickets is common. Their bones don't form right because they never see the sun. Their teeth rot because there's no vitamin D. By the time Antonio is 15, he'll have lost 6 teeth. He'll never know why. The city knows. The city doesn't care. Maria spends her day at the garment factory. She carries the baby with her because there's nowhere else to put it. The factory doesn't allow babies, but the foreman pretends not to notice because Maria is fast with a needle, and he needs her. She sits at a table with 40 other women in a room that's somehow more cramped than her tenement. The air is full of fabric dust. By the end of the day, her lungs will be coated with it. She sews shirtwaists. 12 hours. 16 cents. Her fingers bleed. The needle punches through the fabric and into her thumb for the 3rd time this week. She doesn't stop. If she stops, she gets docked. She wraps the thumb in a scrap of cloth and keeps going. The blood soaks through and stains the white fabric. She'll get docked for that too. The baby sleeps in a box under the table. Sometimes. Back at the tenement, the younger kids are alone. The 8-year-old is watching the 6-year-old, who's watching the 4-year-old. It's a chain of incompetence, but it's all they've got. The 8-year-old, his name is Luca, tries to start a fire in the stove. He's not supposed to. He's too young. But it's cold, and the baby was crying before Maria left, and Luca thinks maybe heat will help. He uses too much kerosene. The flame jumps. It catches the edge of the curtain, a rag really, hung over the window to block the view of the brick wall. The rag is old. It's dry. It goes up fast. Luca panics. He throws the pot of water at it. The water's not enough. The fire spreads to the wall. The plaster catches. The wood underneath starts to smoke. He screams. Mrs. Kowalski hears it through the wall. She's too weak to move, but she yells for help. Mr. Bernstein from downstairs hears her. He runs up. He kicks the door open. He sees the fire. He grabs the kids and drags them into the hallway. The fire department doesn't come. Not for tenements. By the time someone thinks to run 6 blocks to the nearest station, the entire 3rd floor is gone. 12 families, 60 people, homeless. Giuseppe finds out when he gets back from the cannery. His room is a black hole in the side of the building. Everything they owned, which wasn't much, but it was theirs, is ash. Maria cries, not loud. Just a quiet, steady leak of tears that doesn't stop. Giuseppe doesn't cry. He just stares at the hole where his life used to be. They move into a room 2 blocks over. It's the same size, same smell, same brick wall outside the window. Rent is $12 a month. They start over. This happens all the time. Tenement fires are so common that the newspapers don't report them unless someone dies. And even then, it's a back-page story. 3 lines. Fire on Cherry Street, 4 dead, cause unknown. Nobody's surprised. Nobody's outraged. This is just what happens when you cram too many people into too little space and then light it with open flames. Let's talk about the children. Because Giuseppe and Maria have 4 kids, and that's actually below average. Most families have 6, some have 8. The math is brutal. Every mouth costs money, but every mouth also earns money eventually. A 10-year-old can work. An 8-year-old can work if they lie about their age. A 6-year-old can run errands, shine shoes, sell matches. So you have kids. You have a lot of kids. Because half of them are going to die before they turn 5 anyway. Cholera, typhoid, diphtheria, TB, infected cuts, falls down the stairs, fires, getting crushed by a cart in the street. And the ones who survive are your retirement plan. There is no pension. There is no social security. There is no safety net. Your kids are the net. Antonio knows this. He's 10, but he's not stupid. He knows his family needs him alive and working more than they need him educated or happy. So he sells papers. He eats 1 meal a day, usually a potato, sometimes bread, and he gives the rest of his earnings to Giuseppe. On good days, he makes 30 cents. On bad days, he gets beaten up and makes nothing. There are more bad days than good. He doesn't complain. What's the point? Here's the part that breaks people. It doesn't get better. You'd think, if you were naive, if you still believed in progress, that working this hard would lead somewhere. That Giuseppe's 16-hour days would eventually add up to something. A raise, a promotion, a better room. They don't. The cannery pays the same wage in 1895 that it paid in 1885. The rent goes up. The cost of food goes up. The wages don't. Giuseppe is locked in. He will work 16-hour days until his body gives out, and then he'll die, and Antonio will take his place at the cannery, and the cycle will repeat. This isn't a bug. This is the design. The city needs cheap labor. The factories need cheap labor. The landlords need tenants who can't leave. So the system maintains itself. Wages stay low, rent stays high, the gap stays unbridgeable. And if you complain, if you try to organize, to strike, to demand better, you get replaced. There are 10,000 people fresh off the boat from Italy, from Poland, from Russia, from Ireland, who will take your job for less than you're making now. The city has an infinite supply of desperate people. You are not special. You are not irreplaceable. You are fuel. Maria's cough starts 3 months after the fire. It's small at first, just a tickle. She ignores it, but it gets worse, deeper, wetter. She starts coughing up red in the mornings. She hides it from Giuseppe because if he knows, he'll make her stop working, and if she stops working, they can't pay rent. So she keeps going to the factory. She keeps bleeding into the fabric. She keeps carrying the baby in the box. By winter, she's coughing so hard that she breaks a rib. She doesn't see a doctor. Doctors cost money. She wraps her chest in cloth and keeps sewing. The other women at the factory know what's happening. They've seen it before. They don't say anything. What's there to say? One night, Giuseppe comes home and finds Maria on the floor. She's not unconscious, just too weak to stand. Her lips are blue. The baby is screaming in the box, unfed, unchanged, forgotten. He picks her up. She weighs nothing. He carries her to the bed and lays her down. She's burning up. Fever. He wets a rag and puts it on her forehead. It's all he knows to do. She dies at 3 a.m., quiet. No drama. Her lungs just stop. Giuseppe sits next to her for an hour. Then he goes to get the priest. The funeral costs $8. He doesn't have it. He borrows it from Mr. Bernstein, who charges interest. They bury her in a pauper's grave in Queens. No headstone, just a trench with 30 other bodies. The city fills it in with lime to speed up decomposition. Giuseppe goes back to work the next day. The cannery doesn't give bereavement leave. Antonio quits school, not that he was going much anyway, and starts working full-time. Between him and Giuseppe, they pull in enough to keep the room. Barely. The younger kids are on their own most of the day now. The baby stops crying as much. Not because it's happy, because it's learned that crying doesn't bring anyone. This is 335 Cherry Street. This is 1890. This is normal. You want to know the worst part? The part that makes your brain itch? They're the lucky ones. Because Giuseppe has a job. Because the room has a stove. Because they haven't been evicted yet. There are families in the basement rooms, the ones below street level, where the ceiling is 6 feet high and the sewage seeps in when it rains, who have it worse. There are families living in hallways, families living in the stairwells, families who got evicted and now sleep in Mulberry Bend, the open-air slum where the police don't even go anymore. Giuseppe's family has a roof, 4 walls, a window, even if it faces a brick wall. They're doing fine. The city knows about this. Obviously. Jacob Reese is running around with his camera documenting it all. How the other half lives will be published this year. The photos will shock people. The middle class will gasp and clutch their pearls and say, something must be done. Nothing will be done. Oh, sure, there'll be some reforms, eventually. The Tenement House Act of 1901 will require windows in every room. It'll mandate fire escapes. It'll set minimum room sizes, but it won't lower the rent. It won't raise the wages. It won't fix the fact that capitalism requires a permanent underclass to function. The rooms will get slightly bigger. The air will get slightly less poisonous. But the people inside will still be trapped, still dying young, still grinding themselves into dust to pay rent to a man they've never met. Giuseppe will never see the reforms. He'll die of a heart attack at the cannery in 1897, 41 years old. His body will be found slumped over a gutting table, covered in fish scales. Antonio will take his job. The wheel keeps turning. Let's end here. In the room. 12 by 10. 7 people. Now 6. The baby's still crying. Luca's trying to start the stove. The bedbugs are waking up. The rats are in the walls. The window faces the brick wall. 18 inches. The air doesn't move. This is New York. This is America. This is where we came from. And if you think it's gone, if you think we've fixed this, walk through certain parts of this city today. Look at the shelters. Look at the families crammed into single rooms in the Bronx, in Queens, paying $2,000 a month for the privilege of suffocating. The addresses change. The rents go up. The math stays the same. Some people live in rooms. Some people own the buildings. Guess which one you are.